Yesterday, Mayra Flores stunned the political world when the Mexican-born Republican won Texas's 24th district in a special election, flipping a traditionally blue seat for the first time in 40 years. However, the ladies on The View refused to recognize Flores' win when discussing the red wave with Trump administration alum and rising contributor Alyssa Farah. Let's watch that.
But here's what I would warn. The red wave is coming. Republicans are going to win the midterms short of something unforeseen that I cannot predict now.
Why? You don't know that. You don't know that.
All the polling is suggesting that. It's the high gas prices, inflation, and I'm hoping...
Let's wait and see what the people... Let's wait and see what the people voted. And I understand what you're saying, but let's remind people it's up to them to make this decision, but in your...
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's up to the voters. I would just love to see principled Republicans who are not so beholden to Trump win, but last night makes it look like it's going to be people who deny that the election was even won by Joe Biden.
And then later, there's another clip where someone, one of the other, I don't know, it's Anna or Sonny, says... that, well, the people haven't seen the full January, something like, the people haven't seen the full January 6th hearing yet. So, maybe that so I don't know, Briahna, I'm sure you're resting easy. You were very worried about Democrats' chances, but you know that we haven't finished the January 6th hearings. And then, oh boy, they're going to really be cleaning, after the American people learn the truth, finally, about what happened.
That clip teaches you so much about the psychology of the American liberal. Like, look, I like Joy Behar. I think she's the funny one. And she's the only one that was even halfway nice to Bernie Sanders. But what kind of mind space is she living in where she thinks that, far as simply saying polls don't look good for Democrats, something that has been the case since long before this inflation crisis, because that's just the nature of the beast. Typically, these things are cyclical and the party in power loses seats in midterms. That's not a value judgment. That's just an accounting of history and the way the world works. To hear someone say a statement that anodyne and have immediately all the other ladies jump on her, no, we got to wait to see how it shakes out. We got to remind people that it's their democratic choice. You cannot have a conversation. You cannot have any kind of discourse that is at all useful or informative to the people who are watching this show if the defensiveness about your own party is so intense that you can't even let it sink in that you're facing an uphill battle in the midterm season.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a weird position even for a talk show host to have. Like, what is she, an operative of the party, where you're the guest on the show whose only job is to defend the party at all costs? It's myopic. Like you said, the Democrats would be in trouble under a normal circumstance. Everything was fine. This could end up being a rough midterm for them, because that's just usually how it is. And in fact, everything is not fine. Everything is just about as bad as it could possibly be from the perspective of working people.
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to be a bloodbath. True, we don't know for sure. Something dramatic could happen. The situation could improve. But what's not going to change it is finding out whatever comes from these hearings, which we actually haven't been covering that much. I don't find them very interesting. I've been paying attention to what they're saying on cable news about them. But look, there's no great mystery for what happened. We know what happened.
Look.
I think we know what happened. Very, very decisively, Trump encouraged a mob of people. He told them lies. He told them things that were not true. And then he exhorted them to take some action. And then they did what they did. And it was immoral and reckless and irresponsible, and he should never be president again, and he should have been removed as president for it.
Well, look, I think that's
it. But they didn't. He was acquitted. He was essentially acquitted.
I think that summary
what do we do?
is well and good for many, many people. But the point that I've heard folks make, and I think it's fairly true, is that there's a significant segment of this country that does not know what you just said, and who, if you've been exclusively watching and consuming conservative media, you're not getting even the basic framework that acknowledges any of the bad actions, even of the most grievous offenders here. And so you think that there were legitimate concerns about the integrity of the election, and that when
I don't think
Donald Trump. I think a lot of people
yeah.
do believe that, because that's the messaging that they're getting on the main on the conservative news networks, and that there is some utility to presenting the news as is being presented in these hearings, and to having people who are conservatives and do have some trust within the conservative factions saying very clear statements about who was lying to who where and laying out the evidence the way, Liz Cheney and Bill Barr have.
I guess maybe with Barr, but Liz Cheney she has more credibility among the hosts of The View than she does in the Republican
that's
Party.
entirely true, but I think the Bill Barr testimony was something to a lot of people. Again, it depends on if it's actually being shown on Fox News and if people are actually seeing it. But that also the congressman who said he didn't give a tour the morning beforehand, who was now on tape being shown giving the tour, being caught in these bold-faced lies, I think that could potentially have some effect. But the bigger issue, I think, for much of the country is what's going to be happening district to district. The district Flores flipped is an 85% Hispanic county that was won by Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020, signaling that Texas Latinos are perhaps through with Team Blue. While discussing how to win the minority vote on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace, one guest suggested that scaring people into voting Democrat might be the best choice.
Campaigns, we got to give them a reason to feel they have skin in the game, that this is important to them, that losing democracy is important to them. And whether or not it be telling women that, you know what, women, you think you're losing your rights now? What do you think is going to happen if we don't have democracy? You know what, African Americans, particularly African American men who are showing the lowest motivation to turn out in this midterm, you think things are tough for you right now? Where do you think you're going to stand in a country in America where there's no democracy, where they have absolutely no interest or at all in respecting your rights? We've got to let these people understand that they've got skin in this game, and we got to scare the hell out of them, because quite frankly, Nicole, they should be afraid that we're going to lose our democracy.
Losing our democracy seems like too abstract a concept to be a viable political message to win back working class people who are concerned about the price of goods and maybe healthcare and maybe childcare and things like that. But what can I say? I'm not as brilliant as that guy, I'm sure.
Robby,
but
black men and women of childbearing years are not scared enough. They just need to be more afraid. If they were more afraid, it would help the Democratic Party. Look, part of the issue here is that commentators like this, for reasons that we were talking about at a different point in the show, are so detached from working class issues that it's difficult for them to imagine that the priorities of a black man or a woman might not exclusively be criminal justice issues or reproductive rights. Not that the Democratic Party is really doing that much in the way of criminal justice issues or reproductive rights. He
didn't even say those things. He said like things that matter to political scientists or theory.
He's
being a little
cited women and black men. I suspect because he sees them as particularly vulnerable to conservative policies, which is true. But it's too reductive. The average person, whether they be a woman or a black man or any other historically marginalized group, is also focused on the fact that the economy and wages are bound up in all of the persecution that they face. Okay, so we talk a lot about how in the reproductive rights space, affluent women can go to states where they still have the right to choose to get an abortion. Well, this is going to disproportionately, if Roe is ended, disproportionately affect working class women. When we talk about criminal justice issues, you get people like Philando Castile who end up getting shot, in part because they're pulled over by the cops so many times because of all the violations on their vehicle, because he can't get his taillight fixed because he doesn't have the money for all the citations. He's a cafeteria worker at a public school. And Democrats never want to talk about those things. I mentioned in my radar that the average minimum wage earner is a 35-year-old white woman, over a quarter of whom have children. And so we could be talking about the American family. We could be talking about, how to bring back, even a traditional values in a way that conservatives might like, because all the people who were the bedrocks of those families are unable to afford housing or even put food in their kids' mouths. But instead, we have these abstract principles like defending democracy. As though we're all columnists.
Right.
For the Atlantic.
Right. And the threat, also the threat that the Republicans have to cheat or something to win, like that's not, they might just win. It's like, I know the fear is that Trump is going to run, be the nominee, and have set up the system, or he has his most loyal people in the ballot. What if he just wins because everyone hates Biden and his policies?
He did win once before.
Right, he won once. under circumstances that were probably more favorable to the other side than they are we don't know what he's going to face in 2024. So it's just not this idea that I think some Democrats, like the kind of people who are sometimes on The View and on MSNBC, have, that our policies are they're loved by our audience, I guess, our very elite audience. The only way we could lose is if there's cheating or it's stolen. But under the normal, or as close to normal democracy, we don't have a pure, obviously don't have a pure majority vote. We have the odd system we have. But under the odd system we have, Republicans could just win, and they could win decisively.
Yeah, and that you might actually have to make a case to your base and to the broader American public as to why you should win, instead of just saying, be afraid.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Stay tuned. We'll have more Rising for you after this.
Wahaha.